What's going on, everyone? Today is February 26th, 2025. You're tuned into the Invest in Hockey podcast. This is episode number 44. My name is Anthony Santini. I'm joined here with
Eric Wilson.
Ann.
And Andrew Murray.
Hey, there we go. All right. Well, we are missing Landon Moss this week. Obviously, he joined us the past couple episodes, which was a lot of fun. But I know we are 1 week away from NHL trade deadline, and we have a lot of topics to talk about, a lot of trades. I know we have a couple takes that we want to get into, but what have you guys been up to this week? Eric, I know that you're back at school. Murray, you've been working a bunch. It's been nice and busy.
Yeah, I'm back at school. It's been a nice grind, but really enjoying the class more than I was with some other things. So good to see some familiar faces. Sans, some of the boys. We got to have a nice beer on Monday after class. So that was good. We got some nice birthdays coming up, one of them being Anthony's. So, some big things going on, some good hockey games this week too. But yeah, how about you, Murray?
Yeah, like Chance mentioned, I've been working 5 days a week. Some day, times going late at night to like 2, 3 in the morning. So it's been tough,
Jeez.
but it's also a grind. So only a few more weeks, and then MLB The Show comes out. So I'm sure I'll have some fun there. But yeah, I'm excited for Stance's birthday tomorrow.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
cheers. I know hopefully Friday we're gonna get everyone together, watch that Leafs game at Chuck's. $4 Molson Canadians. I know we're fired up for that one. But today, actually, February 26th, is our Yahoo Keeper trade deadline. And I know there's already been some trades. Murray and I have agreed to a deal, and I know there's going to be even more deals coming in the next couple hours until I think 3 a.m. And I know we talk fantasy a lot. We're going to try and stick to the NHL trade deadline. And I wanted to pretty much start with what happened late last night, if you were awake for it or if you were sleeping. I personally was sleeping, but Seth Jones and the Chicago Blackhawks continue to struggle, losing last night to the Utah Hockey Club. And I woke up to a tweet from Elliot Friedman saying that he actually had some choice words after post game, and he pretty much said, he's been losing for 4 years. It's the same cycle 4 years in a row. And after requesting a trade just a week ago, it looks like this is him really putting the gavel down and saying, it's time for me to move on.
Yeah, I think it's exciting that it's such a big name and he's playing well too for a guy on a struggling team. I think that this is just going to bring his value up for the deadline. I think he's going to be at his I don't want to say like value that's even close to his contract, but I think that even though he has a big contract, I think a lot of teams are going to be interested because he's a right-hand shot and he's a good hockey player.
Fun fact from Elliot Friedman: he said last night's game, the shot attempts were 93 to 39 for
Hmm.
Utah. And that's just inexcusable in the NHL. So you can obviously see his frustration. Um, I think, yeah, the contracts to be a little bit tough to move, but I feel there are some teams with some cap space that are willing to take it on. I think Chicago could eat some of that cap if needed. So we'll see what happens with Seth.
Yeah, I believe Chicago is on their second of third cap retention spaces after taking on some of Rantanen's contract. And I don't know the first one, so I believe they do have space to take on Seth Jones' contract, which I think they should if they could get something back from a team like Toronto, Dallas, Florida, maybe Vegas. I don't know. There's a lot of big spenders out there that are looking to make that final push. I think a right shot defenseman that could run the first power play is exactly what any team would take in the league. Obviously, the price isn't going to be cheap, and his contract isn't cheap at all. But for me, I do think that Seth Jones would be the best fit on the Florida Panthers. I could see a swap there where Chicago takes a younger player, maybe a player up for contract. I was thinking maybe Sam Bennett. I know that Elliot Friedman actually floated out the idea of a swap between Matthew Tkachuk and Seth Jones, but I don't think that would happen in a million years. I was really, really surprised when he made a not accusation, but he floated that idea. Where do you guys think? I want to start with Murray here. Where do you guys think would be the best fit for Seth Jones?
I like the team you mentioned. I think Dallas for me is a really good fit. They don't really have like they have Heiskanen, they have Harley, that they have a good left side. But Seth Jones would really bolster up that right side. He's a right-handed shot. It would just bring a lot more dynamic to their decor. But there's a lot of teams. Like you said, the Leafs is one, but I feel like They have Chris Tanev and other right-handed shots. But yeah, for me, it's Dallas just because I don't think they have that right-handed shot as of right now.
Yeah, yeah, that's I mean, when you bring up good teams, I think Dallas is at the forefront there, and he could fit in well there. I think for me, I'm thinking more of like a wild card like team, like I want to say like possibly the New York Rangers. I think the New York Rangers will make the playoffs, and I think that after losing Trouba a right-handed shot, I think Seth Jones could fit in there, and I don't think he needs to run the top power play. I think he's a great hockey player, but I think it could slide in there and play big minutes, PK 5-on-5 as well. So I think maybe like the Rangers, even a team like Philly as well, I could see.
I mean, all teams would be a good fit. I mean, Philly would be a tough move for Seth Jones to waive his no move clause, considering he wants to be moved to a team where is a contender. That was kind of like his take. I feel like Chicago and Philly are relatively close in their timelines along the way to a Stanley Cup. I think Philly is a little bit closer, but for me, I think that Seth Jones would be the best on Florida. I think another team like the Toronto Maple Leafs would fit perfectly, but obviously with his price, I don't think something like that would happen. It'd be way out of reach. I think any team that gets him though would be extremely lucky to go ahead and acquire a player like Seth Jones for their final playoff run, but a team we want to get into and actually showed out for a massive game last night that happened between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Boston Bruins. But Boston Bruins, for the first time in what's felt like almost 14, 15 years, will not be buying at the deadline. GM Don Sweeney said they're going to take more of a passive approach to this deadline and almost sell at the deadline. What are your initial thoughts, Eric, considering you are the biggest Bruins fan that we all know. And how
Uh,
does that make you feel knowing that the Bruins probably will not be in a playoff spot this year?
I'm sad. I'm disappointed. I was I'm gonna use the words pissed off last night after the game. I was and I didn't know what to put it on. I didn't know who I could blame because at the end of the day, it was just a brutal way to lose. But when you look at that team, you're seeing less depth, you're seeing less leadership, unfortunately, and it just seems like the only superstar on the ice is David Pastrnak, and there's absolutely no one else. Obviously, McAvoy's absence leaves him out, but it's unfortunate. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of other teams that might want it more.
Um, there's two things to blame. Two individuals actually. First, Jeremy Swayman, he set the tone coming into the year, thinking that he was above the team and he could do like a holdout. He took all this money and look, he's having a lackluster year this far, to say the least. I mean, how did that goal by Nick Robertson go in? There's a couple of goals like he's got to stop at the end of the day. Second is I don't know if it was a GM or whoever it was who fired Montgomery. That was the dumbest decision I've ever seen. That coach really got you guys like the record wins, and then you kick him out the door. And I believe they're like barely out of a playoff spot at that point, and they fired him. Like that was just a brain rot decision to me. Like I look at him look at the St. Louis Blues. They absolutely pummeled. I forgot who they played last night, but I saw it was like 6 or 7-1. Like obviously he's a winner, and the Bruins just kicked him out the door. So you're just seeing no culture on that team. Like guys like Trent Frederick are being asked to play like second line minutes. It's like that's not going to get you far in the NHL, unfortunately.
Yeah, St. Louis takes it 7-2 yesterday, and they've looked pretty good. However, I know I was listening to Kipper. He's on the Real Kipper and Bourne show for Sportsnet, and he was saying that he thinks that St. Louis is actually in a tougher spot, I believe, than the Boston Bruins because the Boston Bruins look like they're just gonna straight up sell this trade deadline. I know there's been talks that Brad Marchand might be out the door, which is an interesting topic, obviously just being named the captain. But if you are the Boston Bruins and you can't make the playoffs and you know that, and with injury, McAvoy injured, Hampus Lindholm injured, Trent Frederick on the block, do you think that moving Brad Marchand could be in your best interest this trade deadline?
Oh, no shot. I think it's just media attention. I think there's no way you'd trade him. I don't think that'd be good for the Bruins for the next few years while Marchand's even if he chases a cup with the team, I'd suck. It'd suck as a Bruins fan, but
Um, I think the Bruins are kind of in a similar situation, not as bad as the Penguins, but they didn't draft, don't have any real prospects coming up. Just I agree with Eric in this sense. I don't think he should be trading Marshy just yet. He's still like he's lost some foot speed, but he's still a really good player, and I think he's a really good complement to David Pastrnak, especially on like the power play. Um, but I do think that they need to sell off almost everyone else other than past the Marchand McAvoy. And obviously you agreed to Swayman, but I like guys like Brandon Carlo, Trent Frederick, like those should be your first guys getting kicked out the door, to be honest.
Yeah, I think if you could start getting some draft picks recoup for players like that, like you mentioned, you could start to build around some of the younger guys too, like Lorai, back-to-back 2 assist nights. He looked good with that big stretch pass to start the game, 30 seconds in. It's a spot that the Bruins have never been in before, and I think that what makes it more interesting is Marchand is up for contract this summer, so you are in that tough spot to think, well, how much can we really pay him? Because if he looks for a contract like Stamkos was, do you want to be left holding the bag at the end of the summer on July 1st when you can't come to a deal, or do you want to move him for some picks or a prospect or players, whatever it might be? Come next week, March 7th. So right now, I do think that the Bruins will not trade Brad Marchand. I think you guys had some good takes, but I wanted to turn to a more positive note, and Murray actually requested this, but Ovechkin's chase is 13 goals away, I believe.
12 as of last night.
12 as of last night. It was not an empty net goal. It was actually a power play goal. And Ovechkin has been on fire. Scored a hat trick on Sunday and another goal last night. One of the most talented goal scorers in the NHL right now. Believe he is on pace for 50 goals. This is just generational what we're watching. How excited are you, Murray, to sit in your chair and watch him break the record? Because it's going to happen this year. It's going to happen.
I'm so excited. I mean, he's 39 years old, and let's not forget the guy broke his leg this year. I saw a tweet. He would be on pace for 59 goals if he didn't get injured. So like that is ridiculous. Obviously, I think a big credit goes to the Caps ownership. Ovi would not have been able to do this if he didn't have the supporting cast around him. You go and get Chikrin, you got Dylan Strome a couple years ago, who's been like a reincarnation of Nick Backstrom. And then you obviously got John Carlson back there. Pierre-Luc Dubois comes in, Mangiapane, even like guys like Brandon Duhaime. There's such a great culture in that team, way different than the Bruins. I just think Ovi's having the best time of his career right now. TJ Oshie actually said that this culture on this team right now is better than the culture on their Stanley Cup winning 2018 team.
So that.
And yeah, Ovi's having a lot of fun. I think he does it this year. He's got to have a couple more multi-goal games. But if he didn't get injured this year, it would already be done by now, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think so for sure. I mean, with Ovechkin, and I know Eric, I want to hear how you're going to feel if he can break it this season. Like you said, with the support from the front office, it's just kind of, it's not what the Penguins have given Sidney Crosby being able to build around him, and they've made some aggressive moves. The Washington Capitals did, and obviously signing Chikrin to a 1-year deal, hoping that he could stay, locking up Logan Thompson, locking up Charlie Lindgren. You have Alexei Protas, who I believe just scored his 20th or is on pace for his 30th is the number. And he's signed for 5 more years. So he's going to be there for a while. You can start building around him as a strong second, third line winger. But Eric, how do you feel? Do you think that Ovechkin will be able to do it this year? And when he does, or if he does not do it this season, how are you going to feel this summer as we approach a new season, still waiting for him to break the goal record?
There's a lot of optimism for me where I think he could break it, and I think he could break it before the 82 game mark. That being said, I think that there'd be no worry if he wasn't to break it, that he'd break it, within maybe 5, 6, 7 games next year. I don't know how many goals he'd have left, but
Like
the
six,
one,
seven, maybe?
Yeah,
yeah,
six,
like,
seven.
let's say he has a few left. I don't know. I think that for me, the big question is if let's say Ovi's 5 goals away and it's game 80, 81, and 82. Um, what would you do as a Caps GM? Would your mind not go to resting Ovi for the playoffs?
I think obviously, yeah, if there was like mean, 5 goals with 2 games. It sounds pretty crazy, but it's something that Ovi has definitely done before. If it was 5 goals in one game, obviously, you probably give him some rest. But the guys are very rested from this Four Nations break. That's the other thing. No cap, all the caps got snubbed. Lots of them were on vacations, so they came back and they pummeled two like the Pittsburgh Penguins. Like there was no
Yeah.
excuse there. I mean, the only player that played was Crosby and Erik Karlsson. Um, but like, come on, they were just out to lunch. The Oilers, obviously, McDavid was pretty gassed, but you know, I just think that he can do it this year. But like Paul Bissonnette says, it would be kind of cool if it went into next year, just for the hype around it. But I think he'll get it done this year.
And he's a pretty healthy guy outside of the one injury. He's been healthy his career, so that's why I'm not stressed. I don't know about you, Sans, either.
No, I think he's going to do it this year. I actually placed a bet on the score bet where they had the options of which game you think he's going to break it. I put it for game 82 at Pittsburgh, which I think would be pretty cool. I think the hockey gods are going to place that goal in that game, and that's going to break the record. I think that would be pretty cool. My next question before we move on from the Ovechkin and the capital talk is if he does break the record this year, because I feel like we all think he will, does he retire? Because he still is up for contract. So, 2 points. If they do make the playoffs, or sorry, when they make the playoffs and they lose in the first round versus when they make the playoffs or they win the Stanley Cup, what do you think it might make a difference and what are your thoughts?
Um, I'll go first. I think 100% he plays next year. Finishes out his contract. Regardless of their playoff run, because they'll still be competitive next year. Obviously, you signed Logan Thompson. Maybe you'll have to say goodbye to Chikrin. He'll get a big bag this summer. But I think another question that I'm looking at is can he get to 1,000? Like
Hmm.
he's almost at 900 goals. He'd obviously pass Wayne Gretzky for most ever. But think of it, if he plays next year and all of a sudden he drops like 45, 50 goals, he's only what, like going to be like 50, 60 goals away from 1,000 goals. So like, I don't know. I feel like that could be on his radar, but then you have to think he's getting kind of old. I think it's just going to be whenever he decides that he can't play anymore. Whenever that one timer is just not feeling the same. Whenever he just decides he wants to go spend time with Sergey and his other son.
Hmm.
I think. I mean, he's got a lot of decisions to make, but I don't think he'll retire this year for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. It's playing out the contract would be the best option, but another call it 30 goal season would definitely be in reach. And I'm not sure, maybe 35. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I do think that Ovechkin should play on if he feels like it. Like Murray said too, 1,000 goals would be a crazy feat if he did play next year, and they wanted him to play another year. If they're gonna sign him to a 2, 3 year deal, as long as he's good to go. The craziest stat before I move on is that Ovechkin is shooting at a 19% rate. So it's ridiculous. It's one of the best shooting percentages he's ever had in his entire career. So this is actually one of the best paces he's been on. So one of the best seasons he's ever played. It's crazy at the age of 39. But I wanted to move on to Mitch Marner, who actually scored the overtime winner last night. Shimmy shake on Jeremy Swayman to ice the game. He's been playing great, obviously assisted on the game-winning goal. Uh, Connor McDavid's rendition of the golden goal. What do we think his contract looks like if the Leafs do sign him, or what do you think the Leafs should do with Mitch Marner moving forward?
That's the question. And unfortunately, I think the Leafs are gonna play the waiting game, and I think Marner's gonna play the waiting game too. But it's gonna bite one of them pretty hard come off season and come when it's time to get paid. I think that the best thing to do would be sign him long term. In an ideal world, we know the cap's going up, and I think I do think Mitch Marner's a top 10 player this season. I don't think there's a doubt. I think that the issue is just the speculation of if they're going to go far and if they're going to do anything in the next 2 to 3 years. But I think the easy decision's that they should sign him to an 8 year deal and pay him 11 million or something.
Yeah, I agree with Eric. First of all, they both have mutual interests. Obviously, Marner's played his whole career here, and he's from Toronto. Plus, he has a freaking kid on the way, so he's probably gonna want his kid growing up in his hometown. No, But I also would like to say the Leafs, yeah, the Leafs are the only team that can offer him 8 years. So you get the most money out of that contract. But I think the Leafs have to do some sort of a waiting game, and wait to see how this playoffs transpire. Because how long are you gonna just do the same thing over and over? Now, I personally don't think Marner should have been the one of the core forward to say to be let go if he gets let go. But I thought he's been amazing this year. He's getting to it. Looks like he's playing with more confidence, especially in that Four Nations tournament. That one kick pass in overtime. First of all, the guts it takes to do that and the skill is unbelievable. But I think I think the Leafs can offer him anywhere north of like 12 for 8 years. If he gets to the open market and he's getting like a 7 year deal, he can get anywhere from 13 to 14, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, a guy like Marner would thrive somewhere else. It's just a matter of like the Leafs not wanting to see guys thrive elsewhere and kind of just playing that waiting game. We saw it with Willie last year where he was playing his best hockey. You could have gotten so much value for him and he ends up resigning, which is great. And obviously he's playing great hockey too, but that could be something we see again.
Yeah, I think no matter what Marner gets, my personal opinion is it's going to be if he's going to sign in Toronto, a not great contract for Toronto. I don't think it's going to be a number that they feel comfortable at. I mean, it could be 13 mil, it could be 14 mil, way too high for me, even though the cap is going up. I do think, though, on the flip side, another player waiting for a contract, Mikko Rantanen, who is worth 13, 14 million, obviously not playing the best right now. He could be dealt at the deadline. It is very possible. Where do you guys think would fit best in Mikko Rantanen's trade if there were to be one before the deadline?
That's such a good question. I think if he's just signing for a playoff run, I think um and they can retain some money, I think he can honestly go to, any of like say 10 teams. I think he could go. I don't know if he'd stay in the West, but I think a team like a Vancouver or a Dallas could use him. I'm not really sure.
Um, I saw a prediction of this team. I think Vegas, if Shea Theodore goes on LTIR, you can't rule them out because I don't know how much they ate of his money. But I swear like a team can get him for like 3 mil like cap hit right now or like less.
Yeah, it's like 2.5 million, 3 million after everything
Yeah.
works out. It's possible. It's possible.
So if you think about it, that doesn't really rule out any team. And like obviously I think they trade him to a contender. Like no like low level team would trade for him. But I don't know, like if you're the Leafs, why not? You need some more depth scoring. Obviously they got some last night. A team like with the Caps could, but I don't think you want to mess with that chemistry too much. I think personally he would go somewhere in the West, like a Vegas or Dallas. One of those teams in the West would be good.
Yeah, that'd bring a lot of depth scoring. I mean, Vegas already has, call it, a great top six. That'd be pretty scary seeing him with like Eichel on the first line. I think that they'd be pretty unstoppable, but the West also looks so great. I don't think he'd ever go to Edmonton. I don't think they could
Hmm.
really make that gel, but that's the one team where I'm like, holy, that'd be scary to see a power play with Rantanen on it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of teams that could make the deal. My personal favorite to see would be the Leafs. I feel like if it's a little bit of a hot take, but if the Leafs can't get a deal done with Marner before the deadline, I think if you could acquire a player like Mikko Rantanen, who then goes to sign an 8 year deal, obviously if you could relocate that money, give it to him. I feel like that could be a better use of the money. Obviously, it would be an absolute blockbuster, and Mikko Rantanen, one of the best players in the NHL, top five, sure, for sure, being used like a ping pong, just being passed around by teams is ridiculous. But a pretty cool conversation. I feel like there's going to be a lot of good trades next week, but the one that we've all been waiting for, and I feel like the hockey world is waiting for, I don't think it's going to happen, in my personal opinion, is a Sidney Crosby move and a breakup from the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I know Murray's been itching to talk about it, so I'm going to let you have the floor here.
So I want to spend some good time on this one because I think it's a conversation that's not happening enough. The Pittsburgh Penguins have really failed Sidney Crosby. and Kyle Dubas especially, since he's come in. I mean, he made that Eric Carlson trade, which is a real gamble. Um, because if it doesn't work out, you're gonna have a really hard time moving in with his cap hit. So, obviously, it didn't work out like the best. Like he brought in like Ryan Graves, like that guy has like 0 points still the whole year. Like, come on. Um, and then that forward core, I was watching the Caps Penguins game. Wow, like obviously Malkin's not the same player, but it really just feels the only threat is Crosby on the ice with like Rickard Rakell. Like Rickard Rakell is decent, but he's not no first line forward in the league. Like he should not be playing on the first line. Um, I don't know, but there's no direction. Like I can honestly say there's no chance that this team will be competitive uh while Crosby can still play. Like I don't see them being a playoff team in the next 2 to 3 years. Like do they have Michael Bunting and no one coming up from like prospect wise? Like as when we look at the Caps, like we said, they drafted McMichael, drafted Protoss. You have Ryan Leonard coming up. Like they're ready for when Ovi departs. But Pittsburgh is like, if you're not going to trade Crosby now and get some value to rebuild, it's only going to get worse for them because what are they going to do when Crosby just packs it in one day and they have to start from scratch with literally nothing?
That's true. That's true. Their best prospects like Rucker and McGrody right now. I think he's the only notable name for them. I can agree. I think it was PK Subban who talked about that blaming Dubas, and I think like he had a good take on it. But yeah, like signing Bunting was another just bad decision because he's done nothing, and even when he plays with Malkin, he doesn't do much.
Yeah, I do think that even though people are waiting for it, this Crosby trade won't happen. Obviously, sign the 8 million by 75. It was an $8.7 million deal, which kind of signaled that he's giving Kyle Dubas the green light to build around him for the next 2 years. But I don't think it's the right decision. A team like Colorado, I know we're waiting on it. We keep pounding that drum, and Biz, obviously on the Spin Chicklets podcast, keeps talking about it. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I think we would all love for it to happen.
I think that like it's just the kind of guy Crosby is. Uh, he's just a simple, loyal kind of guy. It's kind of hard when you spent your whole career, won 3 cups with one organization. Like I wouldn't really want to leave either, but I just thought that maybe playing at that Four Nations tournament with all the talent and getting that sense of winning and playing in a playoff environment back might change his mind a little bit, but only time will tell. I wouldn't rule it out. I don't, like Santa, I agree it probably won't happen this year. But next year, if things aren't going that well, I wouldn't rule it out.
Any final takes before we wrap this thing up? Any statements?
You know what? I guess no final takes. I think I do want to I guess let our viewers know we're gonna have a real trade deadline episode, and maybe what we'll do is we'll have a top 10 trade deadline targets, and we'll actually put
Mm.
guys who are call it available and not just guys like Crosby who we're not sure about. But I think if we do a nice top 10 board for our viewers and we kind of assess their value, the three of us, or even if Lando's here, the four of us, that'd be a good segment. So I think I'm looking forward to that next Friday with the trade deadline.
Yeah, it's gonna be a big day. I know I have class on Friday, but hopefully before I'll be able to watch as much as possible. Murray, anything from you?
I actually just wanted to get one more take on you guys. One thing I saw last night was Luke Shen calling out his team, saying that he's never really been on a team that can't score goals. And wow, what a shot at your own locker room. And but it kind of speaks to Nashville. They were one of the biggest spenders in the offseason. Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, so like those are guys that should be scoring goals. Um, so what were you guys' thoughts? And do you think that it's like a good thing to call it your own team sometimes, or you think it could just lead to more chaos?
It's a tough call. I get why he's saying that. I think that he's a veteran in the league and he has every right to say that. I don't think anyone would like kind of question that, especially they were shut out by I don't remember who it was. Was it Montreal last night?
I'm not
No, I
sure
don't
who
think
it
so.
was.
It was
I
it
think
was
it's Cal.
somebody, but I can agree that they have so much talent. I don't know why they're getting shut out, but I would look to the bottom six and say they're not doing enough either. So, you have Marchessault, Stamkos putting up some blanks, but like I don't know when you have a guy like Yossi and Forsberg on the team, I don't know why the leadership's not there. Two elite players who can kind of lead the charge. I don't know what the issue is because again, you have Saros who is a top 10 goalie. So I don't know what the problem is. I think Shen should get out of there, to be honest.
I agree.
One final thing, and that's all for me. Obviously, before the season, we had Eric Wilson was telling all our friends that the bet of the year was Victor Olofsson to score more
Huh.
20 or more goals. Last time I checked, he was sitting at 11. There's lots of units on this from Eric Wilson and other individuals in our lives. Do you have any sense of embarrassment or any guilt for telling your friend that this bet was free and it's looking like it's going to come nowhere close?
I'd like to first off um, let everyone know that that was called my bet of the year, my value bet of the year. By no means did I say it was free, and by no means did I tell anyone that they had to put money on anything. I think that um, just because you share a bet with someone does not give any right for them to do. So I think you make personal decisions, and whether we make some units or lose some units on all time, that's a bet that I would have placed last year, and I'm glad I did, and I can't control what happens from here on out.
I like it. I like it. I am definitely riding that bet. Hopefully it does happen because I know it's going to come super close, maybe 16, 17 goals. But that's going to do it for us today. I appreciate everyone listening. Hopefully we'll get Lando next week going. And thanks for joining, boys.
Thanks, fellas.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Thanks for having us.
Cheers.